I'm joined now by ceramic artist Kelly Roth. Kelly, thank you for being here. I love your stuff. It's so great. So I want to talk first about how you got into pottery, and then we'll talk about kind of the more specific stuff. So have you always been a potter, as it were?
Well, off and on. So of course, it depends on when the opportunity presents itself. And so for me, that was in high school, and I had some phenomenal teachers and a really awesome studio setup. So that was where I was able to really fall in love with it. I think I did the old pinch pot for mom back in elementary school or whatever. But just building and playing with Play-Doh and things like that, all of that hands-on stuff really just always appealed to me, and then was able to get into it more in high school.
So one of the things I love so much about your work is the art on top of the art. I mean, I talk to a lot of ceramic artists who make beautiful pieces, but they don't add the abstract art on top. So when did that come into play?
Thank you for asking that and noticing that. That is, okay, so, I went on to college for art education. And so when you do that, you have to take all of the studio classes, right? And so really was able to take ceramics, but only one semester of it, but was painting and doing all of those things too. So in college, I was really kind of fell in love with artists like Jackson Pollock, Vasily Kandinsky, de Kooning, all those abstract expressionist painters.
Artists, right, yeah.
And I loved their lines and their colors and just how expressive everything was. So I really started doing that with painting, and I oil painted a lot. That was something I could do, in my own space, right? So I did a lot of that, in high school too, but then in college really came in the abstract expressionism kind of component. And but my first love was pottery. And so I often tell people now that I just throw my canvas for myself.
Yeah.
And then that's what I can paint on and do the things that I love with line work and color and kind of that really active line on top of it.
Yeah. What is it that you love about ceramics? I read that you love making functional art. Is it the function of it that you love, or is it the process? What made you fall in love with it, I guess, in the first place?
So, the function of it is cool, and I prefer it over sculpture work. But just how it feels in your hands, and just how you can sit down and from a lump of clay do what you got to do, and then all of a sudden it's a bowl or a vase or a mug or whatever you want it to be. But also kind of the clay, I find for me, the clay kind of transforms and starts to show me what it's going to do and what it can become, and then I start to follow its lead. So just that manipulation with my hands and this really malleable material, and just it's so relaxing, and just creating something that then can be usable is really cool, and really to the root of us, right? I mean, that's how people date, sites and things like that, that pottery is kind of the root of us and how we started making things for ourselves. And the fact that I can take it then and do some painting and designing on it is an added bonus.
Yeah. One of the things that I noticed in the photos of your work, and now seeing it up close, it looks so uniform. It looks like it could be mass produced. It's so polished. I mean that in the very best way. And I cannot imagine how you make that happen. As you're talking about, letting the clay kind of tell you what it's going to be. But so how then do you make a set of 4 mugs, for example, that even remotely resemble each other?
Well, and you know what? I think that happens, but it's certainly not the goal. I don't set out to create anything that is like another piece necessarily. I think because of the colors I use and the style that I have, it ends up happening. But that's never my intent or goal. And in fact, I really shy away from that. I look at production potters and think, oh my gosh, that seems like really, really tedious and too much like work to try to make the thing that has the same volume, the same height, the same all of the things. So I think inherently it just kind of happens on its own, but I certainly, I actually kind of run from that idea. But I mean, it's just my same hand using the same colors, creating the forms the way that my muscle memory makes a thing. And so I think it just happens.
So cool. Okay, let's talk about the logistics of creating the abstract art on top of the ceramics. So you make the canvas, which is a whole process in and of itself. Then what happens?
Yeah, so I have the blank canvas, and I have it's called underglaze, and I put it in these little bottles that are a little trailing. They have a little end on it that I squeeze the underglaze out through. And my very beginning is taking black underglaze and just scribbling. I just scribble everywhere. And that's something I did as a kid all the time. I would take a piece of paper, draw a big black line, right? And then it would just create shapes for me to then color in. And so I've just always loved that. And, that was back when we were bored as kids and we didn't have anything to do. And so, I just kind of translated it onto this, a little bit more refined, obviously, but really my goal is to not think too much about it. If I start overthinking, my head gets in the way, or my logic gets in the way, or if I start trying too hard, then it just looks too forced. So I just draw a big black scribbly line everywhere. And then I go back into it. I choose the colors that I want to use, and I color every little shape in that just occurred kind of randomly. And then, I also, as I'm working, I start seeing things appear like, oh, this kind of looks like a little door is here, or this kind of looks like an eye. So I might try to enhance that look a little bit, but not so much that I'm absolutely telling the viewer what to see. I like it when they come up and they say, oh, I see such and such here, or this looks like this to me. And they're all really great, interesting viewpoints that I love hearing. How it affects everybody differently, and how people make sense of a thing that really came about from just kind of the freedom of scribbling.
I wish I could do that.
You totally can.
Even the scribbling, it's like I can't get out of my own way. So when you are doing the scribbling, that happens before the firing, yes?
Well, so I fire it once.
Okay.
To render it bisqueware so it's not so fragile. Then I scribble the big black line and color in with the big bold colors. I fire it again to that same bisqueware temp.
Okay.
And then on a lot of them, I go in with an underglaze pencil, and that's how I get the lines that look like pencil lines that are shaded and cross-hatched. And then I have to fire that again to set it, and then I clear glaze it and fire it again. So this vase, all of these things essentially have been through 4 firings.
At what point did you decide to start selling your pieces? Because I can imagine when it takes that much time and it's a piece of yourself.
Right.
It would be hard to let it go, or is it?
Well, it's not anymore. And in fact, I teach ceramics at Sculpture at a high school, and so I had all of these demo pieces after all of these years. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have all of this stuff. What am I going to do with it? I'm in my 30s. I can no longer just piecemeal this out to family members for Christmas. Right. So, but it was good, and I liked it. And my mother-in-law was doing markets around town, some of the art markets around town. And I thought, gosh, the art market scene in Fort Wayne is so awesome and so massive, and so I wanted to try it out. And so I showed up at West Central, I don't know, 9 years ago or so for the weekend, and sold the things that I just had on hand, and I loved it. I loved meeting everybody. I loved the environment. It was super cool. I loved talking to people about my things and hearing their compliments, and and then after that, the signing up for markets and doing that really became about me forcing myself to keep making because I have kids, because I have a job, and all of these other things. It would be really easy to have that fall on the back burner, right? Of
course.
Because it's hard to find time. So I often say signing up for markets and doing stuff is kind of like me signing up for a marathon. It forces me to get up and run every day.
Yes.
Which then makes me better at my craft, better at my job, which is teaching.
Yeah.
And so I love getting rid of things because it makes me make more. And when I make more, I come up with new ideas or taller forms or a different form. And I'm just constantly evolving my style. And that to me is really rewarding.
So what has art taught you about yourself?
That's a big one. Gosh, you know, it's taught me to, I suppose, just enjoy doing what comes naturally, what I love, to kind of trust the process, to trust my instincts, that my intuition can do some fun things if I open up to that. You know, just keeping in mind that there's two sides to our life, and they're both equally important. One's, you know, paying bills and getting things done and staying organized and all of those things. But the other really important side is tapping into our creativity and just sitting down and thinking and just kind of letting your mind wander. And my mind wanders best while I'm doing this. This is kind of a meditative process for me. So it's important that I make sure I have time to do that, to sit down and just relax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Kelly, your work is just so beautiful, and the way you describe your process and the way that you share it with students, all of that is just fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of the work you do, and thanks for taking the time today.
I am so glad that I got invited to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. For more information, find Kelly Pottery Design on Facebook.
Arts in Focus on PBS Fort Wayne is funded in part by the Community Foundation of Greater Fort Wayne,